what if the reason your last major proposal didn't get approved had absolutely nothing to do with the numbers
Right.
or the data or even your overall strategy?
Oh.
And, what if it had everything to do with just two microscopic words that you didn't even realize you were saying?
It's crazy to think about.
It really is. Two little words that act like this subconscious signal to everyone in the room, basically telling them to doubt your expertise before you've even finished your sentence.
Yeah, setting yourself up for failure right out of the gate.
Exactly. So, welcome in, everyone. Today, our mission for this deep dive is to examine a really brief but incredibly revealing source text about professional communication.
And language psychology, which is just fascinating.
Oh, totally. The deeply hidden power of our everyday vocabulary. We are looking at a text that operates as this sort of masterclass in shifting from hesitant speech to authoritative presence.
Mm.
And it's grounded in a narrative about a professional named Kevin. We're going to follow Kevin as he prepares for a really high-stakes meeting.
We've all been there.
Oh, definitely. And we're going to look at how a tiny, almost invisible conversational habit might be, quietly sabotaging your own great ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. The central premise of our source material is that by swapping out one default phrase, you can instantly elevate your presence to a C1 English speaker level of confidence.
Which is a huge jump.
Huge.
Yeah.
And we are going to look at the exact 7-phrase toolkit the text provides to make that happen.
I think we should establish right off the bat, though, that the framework we're looking at today goes way beyond basic grammar.
Right, it's not just a vocabulary lesson.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Or just, memorizing synonyms. The source material is fundamentally an exploration of the psychology of persuasion and perceived authority. To really extract the value from this text, we need to walk chronologically through Kevin's journey.
Makes sense.
We start in this very isolated, vulnerable place. Kevin is practicing alone in front of a mirror.
Classic presentation prep.
Exactly. And we follow that thread all the way to the complex, kind of messy interpersonal dynamics of the boardroom.
Yeah.
The transformation the source describes isn't about him becoming a totally different person. It's about him aligning his external communication with his actual internal competence.
Well, let's set the scene with Kevin. The text introduces him right in the middle of preparing for this important meeting. And his method of preparation is standing in front of a mirror, rehearsing his presentation out loud.
Which, like you said, is standard.
Very standard.
Yeah.
A highly recommended tactic for public speaking. But when you talk to a mirror, you're effectively externalizing your internal monologue.
Yeah, you're hearing your own thoughts out loud.
Exactly. You're hearing your own default cognitive framing. And Kevin's baseline statements, like the absolute core of the presentation he is about to give, they revolve around 3 specific sentences.
Right.
He looks in the mirror and says, I think this plan will work. Then he follows up with, I think we should change the design. And finally, he concludes with, I think the customers will like it.
What's really fascinating here is the repetitive structural framing Kevin is using.
Yeah.
He is taking the exact same qualifier, that phrase, I think, and he's attaching it to 3 entirely different categories of business statements.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, the first statement, I think this plan will work. That is a forward-looking prediction.
Right.
It's a forecast about logistics and execution.
Okay.
The second statement, I think we should change the design. That is not a prediction at all. It's a directive.
Oh, I see.
It is a strategic call to action. And then the third one, I think the customers will like it. That's an assumption rooted in user psychology and, market analysis.
So they're completely different animals.
Totally different. But by pasting, I think, onto a prediction, an action, and an assumption, Kevin is systematically diluting his own authority across every single conceivable facet of his presentation.
So he is treating entirely different types of information with the exact same level of linguistic hesitation?
He is. He really is. If we break down the cognitive mechanics of the phrase, I think, we start to see why it's so detrimental in a high-stakes professional context.
Why is that?
Well, when you say I think, you are centering the focus on your internal, momentary state of being rather than the objective reality of the business problem.
Right.
You are framing the upcoming statement not as a vetted strategy or a firm conclusion drawn from rigorous data, but just as a mere cognitive occurrence.
It's like it just popped into your head.
Exactly. You are signaling to the room that a thought is currently passing through your brain, rather than presenting a solidified piece of expertise.
I kind of want to push back on the assumption that this is inherently a bad thing, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because the text treats this as a glaring error on Kevin's part. But isn't it highly probable that Kevin isn't being careless at all?
How so?
Like, could this just be basic professional politeness? We operate in collaborative environments where bulldozing people is heavily frowned upon.
That's true. Nobody likes a bulldozer.
Right. So saying, I think, might just be his way of leaving space for others. It's like putting a bumper sticker on a Ferrari.
A bumper sticker on a Ferrari.
Yeah, it softens it. Or, on a slightly more self-preservationist level, is, I think, acting as a deliberate defense mechanism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if he stands in the boardroom and says, I think this plan will work,
Mm-hmm.
and the plan goes up in flames a month later, he has plausible deniability.
Right, he didn't promise anything.
Exactly. He never guaranteed it.
Yeah.
He just shared a thought.
That dynamic is deeply, deeply embedded in corporate culture. We are frequently socialized to soften our language, to appear collaborative, non-threatening, and agreeable.
Especially depending on your role or seniority.
100%. And you are entirely correct about the defense mechanism aspect. Linguistically, it's a form of hedging.
Hedging, right.
Hedging creates a psychological safety net. It protects the speaker's ego in the event of failure or even just pushback.
So it is useful on some level.
Well, here is where the source text highlights the severe cost of that safety net. While hedging might make Kevin feel momentarily safer internally, it acts as a massive drain on his external influence.
Oh, wow.
It protects him from the fallout of being wrong, but it also prevents him from getting the credit for being right.
Because he never really owned the idea.
Exactly. If you introduce an idea with a shield already raised, you are signaling to the audience that you expect to be attacked, which ironically invites the audience to scrutinize your idea more harshly.
You're practically asking them to find the flaws.
You really are.
Which brings us to this pivotal moment in the source text. Kevin is doing his mirror rehearsal, wrapped in his linguistic safety blanket, as you said, and his manager happens to be listening. The text gives us a very specific sequence of events here.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
She listens for a moment, she smiles, and then she delivers a highly targeted piece of feedback. She says, "You have great ideas. Now make them sound more confident."
The structure of the manager's intervention is brilliant, and it's brilliant largely because of what it intentionally omits.
What do you mean?
Notice that she does not interrogate the logistics of his proposed plan.
Right.
She doesn't ask to review his wireframes for the new design. She doesn't demand the market research data proving the customers will like it.
She just skips all of that.
She completely bypasses the substance of his work because she has already validated it. By explicitly stating, "You have great ideas," she isolates the problem.
Ideas are already good.
Exactly. The gap between Kevin's current state and his desired outcome in that meeting is entirely rooted in his delivery mechanism.
So the underlying engine is functioning perfectly. The issue is that the transmission isn't connecting to the wheels.
That's a perfect analogy. That's a really solid way to look at it. The data is sound, the logic is sound, but the signal is being degraded by the noise of his hesitation.
Yeah.
The text mentions that she smiles before delivering the critique.
I noticed that too. Why the smile?
Well, that smile serves a vital psychological function. It establishes psychological safety. It tells Kevin that his position is secure and his intellect is respected. But the smile is immediately followed by a direct imperative to project confidence.
She doesn't sugarcoat the command.
No, she doesn't. The juxtaposition of that reassuring smile with a firm directive, it illustrates a harsh reality of professional communication.
It is.
Possessing the right answer is only half the equation. You can hold the perfect, mathematically sound solution to a company's biggest problem.
Right.
But if you fail to package it with the appropriate psychological framing, that solution will be dismissed.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me.
Okay.
When the manager says, "Now make them sound more confident," she's essentially asking him to change his packaging.
Yes.
But if the audience in that boardroom consists of smart, analytical professionals, shouldn't the packaging be irrelevant?
You would think so.
Right. Are we saying that a room full of executives can't look past 2 words to see the brilliant data underneath?
It's a common complaint.
Like, if a plan is mathematically or logically sound, why does it matter if Kevin whispers it, shouts it, or prefaces it with, "I think"? Aren't we just teaching him how to engage in corporate theater?
The frustration with that reality is very common, especially among highly analytical professionals who really want the workplace to operate as a pure meritocracy of data.
Let the numbers speak for themselves.
Exactly. We want the spreadsheet to speak for itself, but the human brain does not function like a raw data processor.
It doesn't.
No. We rely on cognitive heuristics, mental shortcuts,
Yeah.
to evaluate information quickly.
Okay.
And one of the most powerful heuristics we use is assessing the conviction of the messenger.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. When executives listen to a pitch, they are calculating risk. They are asking themselves, should I allocate capital, time, and my own reputation to this person's idea?
That makes a lot of sense.
If the person presenting the idea introduces it with linguistic doubt, the listener's mirror neurons pick up on that doubt.
So the audience absorbs the hesitation. They feel his uncertainty as if it were their own.
Precisely. You are transmitting a low-confidence signal, and their brains automatically categorize the data as high risk.
Just because of the words.
Just because of the framing. So it's not about corporate theater, which, implies deception or putting on a fake persona.
Right, he's not lying.
Exactly. The manager isn't asking Kevin to lie about ideas he doesn't believe in. She is asking him to achieve alignment.
Alignment.
Currently, his external communication, the hesitant words, is misaligned with his internal competence, the great ideas.
I see.
She is giving him the tools to ensure his vocal delivery accurately reflects the high quality of his underlying work.
And the tools she provides are really the core of this source material.
They are.
The text outlines a highly specific 7-phrase toolkit designed to replace his weak framing. And I want to take the time to really dissect these.
Let's do it.
Because they are not just 7 random synonyms for, I think. They operate on totally different psychological frequencies.
Yes, they do.
The manager groups them intuitively, and the first tier she offers consists of 3 phrases.
Okay, what are they?
In my opinion, from my perspective,
And
as far as I'm concerned,
these first 3 phrases function linguistically as viewpoint shifters.
viewpoint shifters.
Yeah. Their primary utility is establishing firm conceptual boundaries. Let's contrast them with Kevin's original habit. I think is untethered. It floats in the air as this kind of transient mental state. But phrases like, in my opinion, or from my perspective, they physically ground the assertion in the speaker's specialized vantage point.
Oh, that's interesting.
They establish a specific origin for the data being presented.
You know, I read a phrase like, from my perspective, and it brings to mind the mechanics of holding a camera.
A camera? How so?
Well, if you use that phrase in a meeting, you are essentially telling the room, I am standing at a very specific coordinate in this organization.
Oh, I like that.
Like, perhaps I am looking at this through the lens of supply chain logistics or through the lens of customer acquisition. And this is exactly what the landscape looks like from my designated coordinate.
You own the angle.
Exactly. You own the angle. But I have to ask, does staking a claim like that actually foster a collaborative environment?
That's a valid question.
Because if Kevin says, from my perspective, does that shut the door, or does it invite the head of finance to say, well, from my perspective over here in the budget department, the landscape looks different?
It absolutely invites collaboration. But the crucial distinction is that it invites collaboration from a foundation of strength. Whereas I think invites it from a foundation of uncertainty.
Right, right.
I think subtly asks the room for permission to hold an idea. It asks the room to validate the thought.
It's needy.
Exactly. From my perspective, does the opposite. It asserts, I have analyzed this issue thoroughly from my area of expertise, and this is my definitive reading of the situation.
That sounds so much more professional.
It is. It says, I acknowledge that other departments have different data sets, so let's overlay your definitive reading with mine and construct a complete picture.
Wow.
It respects the pluralism of the boardroom while fiercely defending the integrity of Kevin's own analysis.
It's a boundary marker. And as far as I'm concerned, seems to operate similarly, but almost with a more protective tone.
Yes, very much so.
It kind of draws a circle around the speaker's domain and asserts absolute truth within that specific circle while relinquishing control over what happens outside of it.
Exactly. It delineates responsibility.
Right.
But the manager knows that a professional cannot survive solely on boundary-setting phrases.
Right. You can't just play defense all day.
No. There are critical moments in any career where establishing your perspective just isn't enough. You actually have to advocate for a specific direction and persuade others to follow you.
Which brings us to the second tier.
Yes. That brings us to the second tier of her toolkit, which represents a really significant escalation in rhetorical force.
Okay.
We can view these as the power moves.
The power moves. I like that. What are they?
I would argue that, and I'm convinced that.
These phrases carry an entirely different weight. The transition from I think to I believe is massive, even though they look similar on
They
paper.
feel completely different.
Because a thought is something that happens to you. It pops into your head while you're driving. But a belief is something you construct.
Right.
When Kevin shifts from I think this plan will work to I believe this plan will work, he is tying the success of the plan to his professional identity,
And
his core values.
if we connect this to the bigger picture of organizational leadership, using the word believe signals deep internal vetting.
It shows you did the work.
Exactly. It tells the audience that the idea has survived the speaker's own internal stress tests. Then the manager offers, I would argue that. This phrase is a fascinating psychological trigger.
How so?
When Kevin says, I would argue that we should change the design, he is preemptively altering the dynamic of the room.
By doing what?
He is signaling, I am aware this might be contentious. I have anticipated your counterarguments. I have built a robust evidentiary case, and I am stepping into the arena fully prepared to debate this on its merits.
Oh, wow. It immediately positions him as someone who has done the heavy lifting before the meeting even started. He's not just spitballing. He's presenting a brief.
Right.
And then we hit the absolute top of the escalation ladder on her list. I'm convinced that.
I'm convinced that harder rubric represents the absolute cessation of internal doubt.
Cool.
It is the rhetorical equivalent of dropping a gavel. It signals that the investigative phase is over, the evidence has been weighed, and a final, unshakable verdict has been reached.
That is strong.
When you say, I'm convinced that the customers will like this, you are exerting a gravitational pull on the room. You are attempting to draw the audience into your certainty.
Let me challenge the utility of these power moves, though.
Go for it.
If Kevin walks into a room containing his boss, his boss's boss, and cross-functional stakeholders,
Intimidating.
very, and he starts throwing around phrases like, I would argue that, and I'm convinced that,
Yeah,
doesn't he risk severe overcorrection?
that's a real danger.
Because if the broader consensus of the room leans the other way, using that level of definitive language could easily make him sound stubborn, or inflexible, or even deeply arrogant. It feels like a high-risk strategy if he hasn't read the room perfectly.
You've identified the exact risk inherent in high conviction language, which is precisely why the manager did not hand him a single script.
Ah, right. It's a toolkit.
Exactly. She provided a diverse toolkit of 7 distinct phrases because successful communication requires high situational awareness.
You have to know when to use which tool.
If Kevin is introducing a radical, disruptive idea to a naturally conservative or hostile room, opening with, I'm convinced that will almost certainly trigger an immediate defensive backlash.
They'll just shut him down.
The audience will dig their heels in before he even finishes his slide deck.
Yeah.
The power moves are tools of escalation. They are best used when you possess undeniable data, or when a cyclical, endless debate needs a leader to step in and force a decision.
Somebody has to make the call.
But the manager clearly understands the danger of over-escalation, which is why she included the 7th and final phrase on the list.
And this 7th phrase really stands apart from the rest of the toolkit. It operates on a completely different mechanical level.
It does.
The phrase is, it seems to me that.
This is arguably the most sophisticated and nuanced rhetorical device in the entire text.
Really?
Yep.
More than the power moves.
Yes. It serves as the ultimate diplomatic instrument. Let's examine the syntactic structure of what is happening here.
Okay, let's break it down.
With I think, I believe, or I'm convinced, the active subject of the sentence is the speaker. The I.
Right.
The phrase, it seems to me, that entirely removes the active I from the leading position. The subject of the sentence becomes it.
You are systematically removing yourself from the crosshairs.
You are externalizing the premise. You are no longer framing the statement as a product of your own internal generation.
Right.
You are framing it as a reaction to external stimuli. You are suggesting that the data, the market conditions, or the logistical realities are presenting themselves to you in a certain way.
I have to push back on this one.
Okay, what's your take?
When I analyze, it seems to me that my immediate reaction is that it's just a more verbose, slightly elevated way of hiding the exact same insecurity as I think.
Interesting.
It still feels fundamentally non-committal. If I say, it seems like the server might crash, versus I think the server will crash, haven't I just swapped one form of hedging for another?
You're right that it is a hedge.
Isn't Kevin still giving himself an escape hatch?
It is a highly subtle distinction, and honestly, your skepticism is warranted. Yes, it is softer and less absolute than saying, I'm convinced.
Right.
However, the way a listener's brain processes the two phrases is radically different.
Why is that?
I think is inherently subjective. It describes an internal feeling.
Okay.
It seems to me that sounds analytical and observational. When Kevin says, it seems to me that based on the Q3 user retention metrics, we need to pivot the design.
Yeah.
He's portraying himself as a neutral, objective observer interpreting undeniable reality.
Oh, I see.
He is implicitly inviting the rest of the room to look at the exact same evidence and arrive at the exact same inevitable conclusion.
Ah, that makes sense. So I think Cammie makes this statement about Kevin's brain.
Yes.
It seems to me that makes the statement about the reality on the table. It shifts the burden of proof off of Kevin's personal judgment and onto the shared facts.
Exactly.
It's an incredibly elegant deflection.
It reduces the friction of ego.
Yeah.
When you remove your ego from the assertion, it actually makes the assertion significantly harder for others to aggressively argue against.
Because it's not about him anymore.
Right. They are no longer arguing against you. They are arguing against the apparent reality of the situation.
That is smart.
And this transition from the internal to the external, from the hesitant to the authoritative, that is precisely what the source text describes happening the very next day.
That brings us to the resolution of Kevin's narrative. Yeah. The day of the high-stakes meeting arrives. Kevin walks in and actively deploys this new 7-phrase arsenal.
It's a big moment.
The text notes that he uses these expressions naturally throughout the presentation. And the outcome described in the text is incredibly telling.
It really is.
The source explicitly highlights 2 distinct results. First, absolutely no one commented on his vocabulary.
Which is key.
Second, everyone listened more carefully. The text concludes with the assertion that confidence begins with word choice, and replacing that one weak phrase helps you express your ideas with authority and sound like a C1 English speaker.
This raises an important question regarding how we measure the success of interpersonal communication.
What's that?
The ultimate proof of Kevin's victory in that boardroom was not that his colleagues noticed his new rhetorical strategy.
Right.
No one stopped the meeting to commend his masterful deployment of the phrase, from my perspective.
That would be weird.
Very weird. The victory resided entirely in the invisibility of the change.
It's like the best communication acts like a pane of perfectly clean glass. You don't look at the glass. You look at the view on the other side.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. The new vocabulary became transparent because the friction and noise of Kratos', I think, were eliminated.
Yeah.
Kevin's actual substantive great ideas were finally allowed to occupy the center stage unhindered.
They could finally shine through.
Exactly. When a speaker removes the linguistic markers of doubt, the listener's brain is relieved of the cognitive burden of having to constantly verify the speaker's trustworthiness.
They don't have to second guess him.
The audience can just effortlessly lean in and engage with the material. This concept ties directly into the source's reference to the C1 English speaker.
Let's delve into that reference for a second. C1 is a specific classification from the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages.
Right.
It officially designates an advanced, highly proficient, fluent user of a language. But the source material clearly isn't referencing C1 to talk about passing grammar exams or spelling tests.
Not at all. The text uses C1 as a metaphor for executive command and pragmatic competence.
Pragmatic competence.
Yeah. True fluency, whether you are operating in your native language or a newly acquired second language, is not merely about possessing a massive encyclopedic vocabulary.
Right, a basic dictionary has a massive vocabulary.
Exactly. True C1 proficiency is about the pragmatics of language. It is about understanding how to deploy the precise tone, the subtle nuance, and the appropriate framing to command a room,
To get things done.
to navigate complex social dynamics, and achieve a highly specific professional outcome.
Wow.
Kevin achieved a C1 level of presence not by memorizing obscure, complex terminology, but by strategically organizing the simple, everyday words he already possessed to project an aura of unwavering authority.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I keep visualizing Kevin walking into that boardroom, and it feels remarkably similar to wearing a bespoke, perfectly tailored suit to an important event.
That's a great image.
When a suit fits you flawlessly, nobody pauses the conversation to analyze the stitching on your lapel or the mathematical precision of the break on your trousers.
They just think you look good.
Right. The suit itself goes unnoticed. However, the people in the room will subconsciously treat you with significantly more respect, deference, and attention because of the elevated way you are presenting yourself.
Absolutely.
The suit acts as a frame that enhances the picture. These 7 phrases are essentially the perfectly tailored suit for your professional ideas.
That analogy captures the dynamic perfectly, and the most empowering aspect of this specific tailored suit is that it is entirely free, and you can put it on immediately.
No tailor required.
No tailor required. The cause and effect relationship demonstrated in this source text is instantaneous. You alter one single phrase, and you fundamentally alter how an entire room processes your intelligence.
It's almost like a superpower.
It is an incredibly powerful, low-barrier, high-yield psychological tool that anyone can apply the very next time they open their mouth in a professional environment.
It really forces a deep reevaluation of every default phrase we use. So as we synthesize this deep dive, let's review the trajectory we've explored. We started with Kevin engaged in a highly relatable yet totally counterproductive mirror rehearsal, unknowingly sabotaging his own brilliant ideas by falling into the "I think" trap and diluting his authority across predictions, directives, and assumptions. We analyzed the incisive intervention of his manager, who masterfully separated the high quality of his substantive work from the poor quality of his delivery mechanism.
Which was key.
Then, we unpacked her strategic 7-phrase toolkit, moving systematically from boundary-setting viewpoint shifters like, from my perspective, to the heavy-hitting escalatory power moves like, "I'm convinced that."
Right.
And finally, dissecting the ultimate diplomatic deflection tool of school, it seems to me, that. And we witnessed how this subtle, almost invisible realignment of vocabulary commands deeper respect, eliminates cognitive friction for the audience, and achieves that authoritative C1 level of professional presence.
It serves as a really compelling reminder that in the professional sphere, language is never merely descriptive. It is inherently active.
It does something.
The words you select do not just passively describe the reality of your ideas. They actively construct the reality of how others perceive and value those ideas.
And that brings us to a final provocative thought I want to leave you with today. The text emphasizes that no one commented on Kevin's new vocabulary, but everyone listened more carefully.
Yeah.
His transformation was entirely invisible to the naked eye, yet entirely transformative to his career. It makes you wonder, if merely swapping out 2 words like "I think" can instantly change the level of respect your ideas command, what other default unconscious words in your daily vocabulary are secretly giving the world instructions on how to treat you?
That is a great question.
Are you habitually apologizing when you haven't made a mistake? Are you phrasing statements of fact as questions, implicitly asking for permission to be right? What invisible linguistic habits are you wearing into your most important meetings? And more importantly, which one are you going to replace tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of professional vocabulary. Take these 7 phrases, find the one that best fits your style, and take it for a test drive in your next big conversation. We'll see you next time.